Now we're coming to the next segment. I hope I've laid the foundation and you see what the societal transformational change is that we're facing. And now, hand in hand with these technological developments and the goals of these visionaries, hand in hand must be the law. Lawyers must be involved. Laws must be created. I'm going to talk to you about what space law is, where it comes from, its fundamental principles, and its hardest challenges. Let's talk about space law. Where does it come from? As I said, it's not new. It's been around since the 60s. It's been around for some 60 years. And it emanated first from the United Nations. This is a view of the plenary chamber in the United Nations building in Vienna, which is where the Committee on Peaceful Uses of Outer Space meets. And it meets multiple times throughout the year to debate the most pressing issues of space law and to formulate both hard law, that is treaties, binding treaties, and soft law, which are non-binding instruments such as guidelines, best practices, instruments that seek good behavior, certain behavior from countries, even if it's not binding legally. But the optimal form of law is a binding treaty that must be respected by all parties. And this is yours truly actually speaking to the plenary at the United Nations a few years ago, where I spoke and encouraged all the nations of the world to adopt the US model of involving industry when developing legislation. As I said at the very outset, it's important to understand what it is you're regulating. So if Congress wants to pass new laws regulating, for example, the space industry, space tourism industry, they better first understand it and what is happening technically and what the business issues are and what the effect of the legislation is going to be and what the goals of the legislation should be. And the only way you can understand that is by talking to the people that are actually bending metal and lighting rockets. And the United States does a very good job of that. I've served on committees in Washington, for example, the Commercial Space Transportation Advisory Committee, which is a group of private people, private citizens, mostly executives from companies, but also academics, who advise directly the FAA about new regulations and laws, because the FAA is the agency in the United States that issues launch licenses. You know, you can't just launch a rocket out of your backyard. You have to get a launch license from the FAA. And there are many regulations, of course, around that and an involved process. And that is constantly being modified and improved according to the needs of the industry, because we're launching now not just telecommunication satellites, but we're launching human beings who are not trained astronauts into suborbital and orbital space. And so the requirements for launching that should be different, and they are different. But the US does a very good job of listening to the private industry before doing anything. This is a famous picture of our President John F. Kennedy, JFK, ratifying on the part of the United States, the Outer Space Treaty, which is the Magna Carta, the Constitution of outer space. It was developed by the United Nations. It was ratified by the US and most other countries in the world, certainly all of the major space powers.